The twin moons of Psychora hung low on the horizon, casting a pale crimson glow over the obsidian plains. Captain Damien Varel crouched beside a jagged outcrop, his gloved hand brushing over the ash-covered stone. The readings on his wrist console blinked erratically. Something about the atmospheric resonance didn't sit right. Behind him, the faint whir of hover engines and the crunch of boots on metallic dust signaled his team's arrival. Lieutenant Raya Maddox appeared at his shoulder pulse carbine, slung casually over her shoulder. "No movement on thermal," she said, "but the scanners keep spiking in the lower delta band." Damien stood slowly, letting his gaze sweep across the valley of glass. Psychora 7 had been a dormant outpost abandoned centuries ago during the Zenthian collapse. Now reports of strange energy blooms and erratic seismic activity had brought them here. Deep Recon Unit 27 dispatched from the Terran Frontier Corps. Officially, it was a recon op. Unofficially, it was damage control. "Anything from orbit?" he asked. Raya shook her head. "The frigate's scans are still getting scrambled, like something's deliberately jamming deep band telemetry." "Of course it was." Damien muttered a curse under his breath and tapped his communicator. "Varel to base perimeter secure. No hostiles. Moving to investigate the pulse center." A pause, then a static-laced reply. "Acknowledged, Captain. Proceed with caution. Signal weak." They advanced. Psychora 7 was a dead planet. At least it was supposed to be. The surface bore the marks of ancient bombardment craters the size of buildings, shattered ruins of monolithic towers, and long-dried rivers of molten slag. No fauna, no flora, just silence and wind. And yet the signal had returned. Damien had read the old reports during the height of the War of Collapse. The Zathari Dominion had experimented with something here, genetic resonance weapons rumored to be semi-sentient. The project was abandoned after a failed containment breach turned an entire quadrant into a blacklisted zone. Some called it superstition, others called it science gone mad. He called it a headache. "Movement," Raya snapped. The squad halted instantly. From the ridge ahead, something shifted fast, deliberate, and low to the ground. Damien raised a hand. "Hold! Wait for visual confirmation." Through the rippling heat haze, a figure emerged. At first it looked humanoid, tall, lithe, moving with uncanny precision. The skin shimmered under the red moonlight, not like flesh, but like armor, smooth, almost translucent. Long black tendrils of hair flowed behind her as she stepped forward from the ruined archway of a fallen spire. Her eyes caught his, bright cyan glowing faintly, and fixed directly on him. Raya whispered contact. One bioform, no IFF signature. "I see her." The alien woman, if she was a woman, tilted her head. Then she dropped into a low stance, limbs tensing like a predator about to strike. Damien's instincts kicked in. "Stand down," he barked. "We're not hostile." The words barely left his mouth before she launched herself at him. She moved like lightning, faster than any Terran augmentation Damien had ever seen. Her body arced through the air, and her claws, yes, actual claws, glinted under the moons. Damien barely managed to activate his kinetic barrier in time. The impact knocked him back a full meter, his boots skidding across the dusty glass. Raya shouted something, but he couldn't hear it. The alien was on him in an instant, straddling his chest, one hand pinning his wrist, the other poised to strike. Her mouth opened, sharp, needle-like fangs gleaming. "Wait, too late." She bit. Her teeth pierced the soft seal between his helmet and collar. Damien grunted as pain bloomed along his neck. He braced for the burn, for the paralysis the old Zathari files warned about. But it didn't come. Instead, there was a warm tingling. No pain, no venom rush, just confusion. The alien's eyes widened. She pulled back sharply, fangs dripping, staring at him like he was something unreal. "You did not fall," she hissed, her voice accented but clear. "You should be dead," Damien blinked. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Her expression, once feral, now shifted to something else. Confusion, curiosity, maybe even fear. Behind her, Raya aimed her weapon. "Don't," Damien shouted. "Hold your fire." The alien turned toward the threat instinctively, but didn't attack. She slid off Damien, maintaining eye contact. He rose slowly, rubbing his neck where blood had begun to trickle. "I'm Captain Damien Varel," he said, voice calm but firm. I don't know who you are or why you attacked me, but if this is your territory, we don't mean harm. She studied him, her claws retracted. The glow in her eyes dimmed slightly. I am Kailari, she said, voice softer now, blood-born sentinel of the Emberkin. This ground is consecrated. Your presence was intrusion. Damien exhaled. Well, that explains the welcome committee. Kailari tilted her head again, visibly assessing him. You should have died from my venom. None survived the blood touch. Damien wiped the smear from his neck with his glove. Guess I'm the exception? No, she said quietly, stepping forward. You are anomaly. The word hung between them. Rhea approached cautiously, eyes flicking between the two. Sir, I don't like this. She bit you. You should be immobilized. That stuff's lethal. Tell me about it. Kailari watched both of them. This changes everything, she murmured. I must understand. You must come with me. Damien raised an eyebrow. You always invite people by biting them first? Kailari did not smile. The ritual demands truth. Your survival is truth. Damien turned to Rhea. Looks like we're guests now. Guess, she hissed. Are you serious? We came to find answers. Looks like one found us. As the moons of Psychora drifted higher, casting long shadows across the glassy ruins, Damien Varel followed the strange, glowing-eyed predator into the heart of forbidden ground, unaware that his blood had just triggered a legacy long buried beneath ash and silence. The Ember Way was not a trail in the traditional sense. It wasn't marked by signs or trodden by the feet of travelers. Instead, it shimmered faintly beneath the surface of the blackened terrain, an ethereal ribbon of orange light pulsing in rhythm with Psychora's subsurface energy field. Kailari walked with unerring precision, her bare feet stepping directly on the glowing path as if guided by instinct. Damien and Rhea followed at a cautious distance, their boots crunching lightly on the fused volcanic soil. I still think this is insane, Rhea muttered. She bit you. She could have killed you. She still might. Noted, Damien replied without turning his head. She didn't. And now we know something no one else in the Corps does. Her kind is still here. Rhea glanced ahead at Kailari, who moved like a living shadow beneath the moons. And what exactly do you think we're walking into? Damien wiped sweat from his brow, the heat still oppressive, even at night. Answers. They reached the first monument by nightfall. A spire half-collapsed jutted from the cracked earth. Around it stood concentric rings of obsidian stone, each one carved with intricate glyphs that glowed softly as Kailari approached. She extended a hand, her fingers tracing. One sigil sparks burst from the contact, rippling outward in geometric pulses. Rhea raised her rifle reflexively. That normal Kailari ignored her. Instead, she spoke in her native tongue, soft, melodic, and layered with subharmonics that sent a strange resonance through the ground. Then she turned to them. This was a shrine to the Ember Seed, she said, a relic of the first memory. Damien stepped closer, careful not to touch the glowing stones. You said this place was consecrated. What does that mean? Kailari tilted her head. This land remembers. The energy beneath what you call geothermal flux is what we call ember pulse. It is the blood of Psychora. We listen to it. Rhea scoffed. You mean your people are religious fanatics? Kailari didn't react to the insult. We are symbiotic with the flame, not worshippers, participants. Damien studied the glyphs. They weren't just decorative. Each one pulsed in a specific rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Then why attack me? He asked. If your people believe in balance, what was the point of trying to kill me? Kailari's expression darkened. Because it is the right. Intruders are tested. The bite reveals what words cannot. Truth is in reaction. And my reaction, he prompted. You lived, she said simply. They made camp beneath a natural overhang near the second light well. Damien laid out portable heat dampeners to mask their thermal signatures, standard protocol on uncertain worlds. Kailari, however, sat cross-legged on bare stone, her hands resting on her knees, her breath slow and steady. She hadn't eaten, hadn't asked for water. She simply sat. You sure she's not some kind of synth, Rhea? Whispered while cleaning her rifle. Damien shook his head. I've seen enough bio-augments to know she's real. Probably more real than us. Still don't trust her. Good. Don't. He turned his attention back to Kalari, who had now opened her eyes and was watching him. You carry silence, she said softly. Damien blinked. What you do not speak your pain. It walks beside you, but you pretend not to see it. He didn't answer. Raya snorted. Great. Now we've got a psychic monk. Kalari ignored her again. She reached into a pouch at her waist and retrieved a small stone black glassy and veined with a single streak of glowing amber. She rolled it between her fingers. Do you know why your blood resists mine? Damien leaned forward. I was hoping you'd tell me. She studied the stone. Centuries ago during the Ember Wars, my people created sentient toxins, biological agents that targeted invaders at a molecular level. The bite was not a weapon. It was a test, a key to what compatibility? The word hung in the air. Raya stiffened. That better not mean what I think it means. Kalari stood her movements, slow but fluid. Few survived the blood touch. Those who did were believed to be connected, chosen by Psychora itself. When your body rejected my venom, it was not immunity, it was alignment. Damien frowned. You're saying Psychora chose me? Kalari met his gaze. Or you chose it. Consciously or not. Raya stood abruptly. Okay, we're done here. Captain, this is cult territory. We need to get back to base and report before this gets worse. Stand down, Lieutenant. With respect, sir, this is madness. You're listening to a woman who bit you and now thinks you're some kind of prophecy. That's how cults start. Damien looked between the two women, one vibrating with distrust, the other with eerie calm. I didn't ask to be bitten, he said finally, but I'm not ignoring the fact that it happened, and I'm still alive. Whatever's going on here, we're in it now. We see it through. Raya exhaled through her nose, tense but compliant. Fine. But if she tries anything, Kalari's voice cut through the night. I am not your enemy. The three of them fell into an uneasy silence. Later that night, while Raya kept watch, Damien found himself standing beside Kalari at the edge of the overhang, staring out into the empty wasteland. Your people. Are they all like you? Kalari's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. No. I was born during the collapse. One of the last bloodborn. My kind sleep beneath the flame now. Then why are you awake? Because the signal came. Your presence disturbed the ember pulse. That's how I found you. Damien turned to her. So this wasn't random. Kalari's gaze locked with his. Nothing ever is. They stood there shoulder to shoulder. Not quite allies. Not quite strangers. Just two anomalies watching the horizon, where the ground whispered with ancient fire, and something deeper stirred beneath the silence. The entrance to the chamber lay hidden beneath a collapsed starship engine, half swallowed by obsidian flowstone and glowing lichen. Kalari knelt before the twisted ruin, whispering something under her breath as her hand traced a faint sigil etched into the stone. With a low hum, the rocks shifted. The ground shuddered slightly as a slab of basalt cracked open, revealing a narrow stairwell spiraling downward into darkness. A faint orange glow pulsed from below, like the flicker of a buried heart. Raya raised her weapon immediately. Of course there's a secret door. Why wouldn't there be? Kalari stood. The ember vault lies beneath. It is older than your species. Damien hesitated. And what exactly do you plan to show us down there? Kalari's cyan eyes glinted in the low light. Truth. The descent took over 20 minutes. The air grew heavier with each step, thick with metallic ozone, and something older, something alive. The walls of the passage pulsed faintly as though reacting to their movement. Damien found it hard to breathe, not from the pressure, but from the sensation that he was walking down the throat of something that could swallow him whole. At the base of the stairwell, the passage opened into a vast circular chamber. Crystalline pillars spiraled from floor to ceiling, humming with low-frequency resonance. In the center stood a dais, on it, a hollow pedestal surrounded by 3 stone arms etched with the same sigils as the spire above. What is this place? Damien asked, eyes sweeping across the chamber. Kalari stepped onto the dais, a convergence point. Here the ember pulse is strongest. The vault remembers all who touch it. She turned toward him. I brought you here because your blood awakened the signal. The resonance patterns match those of the old seed. Raya scowled. You keep saying things like old seed and bloodborne like they mean something. Why don't you speak plainly? Kelari descended from the dais, expression unreadable. Because plain words are a human invention. You reduce the infinite to the explainable. But Psychora does not speak plainly. Damien placed a hand on the pedestal. It was warm, pulsing, almost as if he jerked his hand back. It moved. Kelari's eyes flared. It recognized you. The pedestal cracked. A beam of amber light burst from its core, striking the ceiling and splitting into 3 streams that lanced toward each pillar. The chamber trembled and sigils lit up across the walls in perfect sequence, faster than any human could read. What the hell is happening? Raya shouted, raising her rifle. Kelari knelt, pressing her palm against the floor. You've triggered the archive. Images flickered across the chamber. Not holograms, memories. An ancient city suspended above rivers of fire. Beings like Kelari, wings of molten crystal, rising behind them, channeling raw energy into machines of impossible design. Then fire, collapse, screams without sound, the city falling, and one figure half buried in ash holding a shard of the same crystal embedded in Kelari's shoulder. Damien stepped back, shaken. What? What was that? Kelari rose slowly. The last breath of the first flame. Raya lowered her rifle slightly. I don't buy it. Could be a projection, a manipulation. Kelari turned to her. Your doubt is reasonable, but your instincts are louder. You feel it, don't you? The pull. Raya opened her mouth to retort, then closed it. Her hands trembled slightly. Damien rubbed his temples. You said the old seed. What is that? Kelari approached him again, slower this time. A gene thread, planted long ago in distant species. A safeguard, a key. Only one in a generation may carry it. You're saying, I was engineered, not engineered, invited. Rhea stepped between them. Captain, this is starting to sound like indoctrination. I agree, Damien said softly, but that doesn't mean it's not real. They spent hours in the vault analyzing the glyphs and trying to understand the sequence. Kelari explained what she could, how her people had once ruled not with weapons, but resonance shaping matter through harmonic thought. The vault had been created to preserve what remained after the Emberfall, a calamity whose details had been lost even to her people. What caused it? Damien asked. Kelari stared into the center of the dais. Something awakened. Something the flame could not contain. Raya muttered, Great. Let me guess now that you've recognized, Damien, it's going to awaken again. Kelari didn't argue. That night they camped near a thermal vent overlooking the valley. Kelari sat across from Damien, the flickering firelight reflecting in her eyes. You said your venom tests compatibility, but you also said none have ever survived it. Correct. Then why now? Kelari didn't answer for a long time. Finally, she said, because the cycle repeats, and this time it began with you. Damien stared at her, searching for deception, and found only conviction. You're not the only one with secrets, he said finally. After the war on Vasca 5, I underwent augmentation, gene therapy, neural resilience overlays, stuff that's still classified. Maybe that's why I survived. Kelari looked at him. Or maybe Psychora knew your name before you did. He didn't sleep that night. The message arrived just after dawn. A shrill chirp from Raya's comm unit broke the stillness of camp. She snatched it up quickly, glancing at Damien before activating the encrypted channel. Static burst, then a clipped voice came through. Recon Unit 27. This is Frontier Command. Captain Varel respond. Your signal is live, but your protocol status has been flagged. Damien stepped over. Varel here. Explain your deviation. Your unit was assigned observational clearance only. Instead, we're tracking unauthorized descent into classified zones. And there's chatter about alien contact. Raya muttered. That didn't take long. Damien stayed calm. Confirmed. We've made first contact with a native Psychora subspecies, one previously assumed extinct. Not hostile. No casualties. There was a pause. Then return to drop point immediately. Do not engage further. Extraction team en route. Kelari, seated nearby, sharpening a crystal blade, raised one eyebrow, but said nothing. Damien didn't respond right away. His eyes locked with Kalari's, then turned to the valley beyond their perch, the place where the vault had whispered truths no human had ever heard. Negative, he said at last. Repeat that, Captain, we're staying. There's something down here, something ancient, possibly pre-collapse tech, maybe even cross-genetic architecture. It's not hostile and we're not pulling out without learning more. That is not your call. Then court-martial me later. Varel out. He cut the channel. Raya stared at him. You realize you just burned your career, Damien shrugged. If this goes the way I think it will, careers won't matter. Only outcomes. Kalari stood and approached them. Your leaders are frightened. They're cautious, Damien replied. This world is a blind spot. The unknown makes them twitchy. But now she said you are no longer unknown. By midday, they reached the next ridge overlooking what Kalari called the Skystead Hollow. There, rising from the shattered earth, was something that didn't belong. A structure, circular metallic, partially collapsed. Not Sycoran, not Aegis-built either. Damien zoomed in with his optics. Symbols lined the edges, sharp, angular, unlike the organic script of the Emberkin. Raya breathed, That's Terran military plating. Damien nodded. Key-class dropcraft, maybe 200 years old. Abandoned long before the current recon maps were drawn. Kalari stepped forward, her expression tight. This was not here before. Not in my cycle. Rhea scanned the terrain. Could have been buried. Something might have uncovered it. Or someone, Damien thought. Inside the wreck, the air was stale but breathable. Most of the interior had been stripped. Scorch marks lined the walls. The command pod had collapsed in on itself, but the data core casing remained intact miraculously. Damien approached it cautiously. Could be valuable. If this dropcraft came during the collapse, it may contain intel on Sikora's initial quarantine. Kalari stood at the threshold, visibly uncomfortable. The air smells wrong. Raya looked up from her scanner. Residual radiation. Not lethal, but yeah, something happened here. Damien popped the casing open. Inside, nestled in a coolant sheath, was a black data shard. He lifted it carefully. That's Terran military code, Raya said. No question. Encrypted. But I can break it. Kalari's voice sharpened. You should not disturb this place. Why, Damien asked. What do you know about it? She didn't answer immediately. Then because this place does not remember the flame, it remembers something else. That night, while Damien and Raya sat over the flickering campfire, decoding the shard, Kalari kept to the shadows. Her gaze never left the wrecked dropcraft behind them. Inside the shard was a message, scrambled but readable. Project Temperance has failed. Sikora is not viable. Subject 6 breached genetic compliance parameters. Last known location, Ember Hollow. Initiate total purge protocol if contact occurs. No further messages. Raya frowned. Subject 6 genetic compliance. Damien looked to Kalari. Any of this sound familiar? Kalari stepped forward slowly. The flame speaks of 6. Her voice was distant now, as if recalling something from another life. 6 voices that came from the void. 5 fell. 1 was not extinguished. Raya muttered. What the hell were we doing on this planet 2 centuries ago? Testing something, Damien said grimly. And it got out. Kalari's breath caught. You did this. Not me, he said quietly, but my people. Yeah. Suddenly the sky lit up. A streak of fire, no a ship. Descending fast. Its engine screamed as it punched through the upper atmosphere. Raya leapt to her feet. That's not ours. It's not broadcasting any UEDF codes. Kalari's expression changed. I know that ship. You do. She nodded once. It belongs to the Pyrocrete. Who the hell are they? Raya asked. Kalari's eyes gleamed. Hunters. Flame-born exiles. They serve no memory. Only appetite. The ship disappeared behind the ridge. Then a thundering boom rolled across the plains. Damien stood. Looks like we're not the only ones interested in Sikora's secrets. Kalari's voice dropped low. No. And if the Pyrocrete find what lies in the hollow, your people will not be the only ones who burned. The crash site still smoldered as Damien, Rhea, and Kalari approached under cover of dawn. The Pyrocrete vessel had torn a crater into the rock plains, a sleek obsidian spear embedded in the land like an accusation. Smoke drifted in lazy coils, tinged red with the rising light. Chunks of shattered hull glinted like black ice in the sand. Raya crouched near a ridge, peering through a portable recon scope. No movement, but heat signatures are all over the place. Something's still alive in there. Kalari's expression was hard. They'll be gathering, marking territory. The Pyrocrete do not hunt with stealth. They dominate. Damien checked his weapon systems, pulse rounds, chambered power blade clipped to his thigh. Do they talk? He asked. Negotiate. Kalari's jaw tensed. Not anymore. They descended together, weapons drawn, boots crunching over fractured obsidian and twisted metal. The Pyrocrete ship bore no insignia, no call signs. Its surface was layered in overlapping scales, almost organic in appearance. Damien ran a gloved hand over it. It felt warm, pulsing faintly. Alive, he muttered. In part, Kalari said. They seed their ships with ember chains grown, not built. I hate this planet, Raya whispered. Inside the wreck, the air stank of iron and heat. The corridors were sloped, unnaturally warped from the impact. Flickering lights revealed half-glimpsed shapes, torn restraints. Claw marks on the walls shattered stasis pods. Then they heard it, a wet scraping sound, and breath labored bestial. They stopped at the junction of a corridor split in three. The sound came from the center path. Movement, Damien whispered. Kalari raised a hand. Let me. Before he could object, she moved down the center corridor with eerie silence. Her body shifted in rhythm with the ship's unnatural geometry, almost like she was dancing through it. Rhea leaned closer. We're just going to let her walk into that alone. She knows them, Damien said. Better than we do. Then came the roar. It shook the corridor low, throaty and primal. Damien drew his blade. Move! They sprinted after her, turning the corner just as Kalari was thrown into a wall. Her body struck the plating hard, but she rolled with the impact and landed on her feet. The thing that emerged behind her was not fully humanoid. It was massive, armored in blackened bone, with a face half covered in a crusted mask fused to its skull. Its arms were too long, ending in jagged claws. Behind its back, jagged dorsal vents exhaled steam in rhythmic bursts. It saw Damien and hesitated. Human, it hissed, voice wet and distorted. Raya raised her rifle. Guess they do talk. Kalari spoke, voice fierce. Back down, Creelborn. This ground is consecrated. The creature's mask twisted. Consecration is dead. You are dead, Kalari. Damien stepped forward. We don't want to fight. You exist, the creature said. That is fight enough. Then it lunged. The battle was brief but brutal. Raya unloaded her pulse rifle into its chest, forcing it back. Damien met it, blade to claw, sparks flying as steel met bone. Kalari moved like fire, her crystal blades slashing in arcs that glowed with residual heat. The creature screeched as her blade struck home. Its mask split open, revealing a twisted half-face covered in red fungal threads. Not Pyrocrete, Kalari gasped. It's corrupted. Damien buried his blade into its sternum and twisted. With a howl, it exploded in a burst of steam and ash. Silence fell. Kalari stepped back, breathing hard. Her skin glistened with sweat, eyes wide. What did it mean? Damien asked. Consecration is dead. Kalari looked at the corpse. The Pyrocrete must have found a rupture, a flame well corrupted by old machines. It's warping them. Great, Raya said, voice dry. Now we've got mutant techno-zealots. Damien stared down at the corpse. No, we've got something worse. That night they camped inside a collapsed shuttle bay, shielded by broken hull plates. Damien sat apart from the others, replaying the data shard in his mind. Subject 6, genetic compliance, total purge protocol. What the hell were we doing here? He murmured. Kalari approached quietly, settling beside him. Her scent was earthy, laced with heat, in a faint metallic undertone. You carry the questions like a burden, she said. They're not questions, he replied. They're consequences. She studied him. You blame yourself. I blame the system I serve. You're part of it. Yeah, he said softly, and now I'm breaking it. Kalari reached out her hand, brushing his. Sometimes fire cleanses what cannot be healed. They sat in silence for a while. The flames crackled between them, small and defiant in the dark. Then she said, "When the Emberkin fell, some of us believed the planet itself chose vengeance, that it would reject all who tried to remake it. But it didn't reject me." "No," she whispered. "It welcomed you." Later, Damien stared at his reflection in a shard of hull glass. His eyes looked the same gray-blue sharp, but something beneath them had changed. A resonance, perhaps. A depth he didn't recognize. "You ever think," he said aloud, "that maybe the planet didn't choose me? But I was made for it." Rhea nearby didn't answer at first. "Then you really believe all this?" He turned. "I don't know, but I can't ignore what I've seen. You're not the same man who took this mission." "No," he agreed, "I'm not." As they prepared for sleep, Kalari sat at the edge of the chamber, eyes closed, hands folded over her blade. She whispered something in her own language, words that made the stones beneath her faintly glow. "What are you doing?" Damien asked. "Calling the echoes," she said. "For what?" She opened her eyes. "To warn them the fire's waking." The morning came colorless. Clouds hung low and gray over the cracked horizon, casting a dull haze over the valley. The wind had shifted during the night, bringing with it the smell of ozone and sulfur, an indication that more than just weather had changed. Kalari stood before dawn, already dressed in her layered armor, skin glistening with dew. Damien watched her from a distance. She moved with that same effortless precision, as if the land whispered to her feet where to step. He couldn't deny it anymore. She wasn't just adapted to this world, she was woven into it. Rahaya was less poetic. "We should get out of here," she muttered as she powered up her equipment. Scan range just picked up 2 more atmospheric entries, both Pyrocreed signature patterns. Drop crafts, maybe 5-6 hours away if they're moving on foot. "Let me guess," Damien said. "They're not here to start peace talks. They're hunting," Kalari confirmed as she approached. "They'll be drawn to the vault. To you." "Why me?" She met his gaze with a steadiness that made his spine tighten. "Because you survived the bite. You hold the echo." Raya rolled her eyes. "And what is the echo this time? Another prophecy, a supergene, a holy resonance?" Kylerai didn't take the bait. She turned and gestured to the ridge behind them. "You asked for proof. Then we go to the furnace well." The path to the furnace well was carved through sheer rock, an ancient fissure widened by time and tectonic anger. Black crystal formations jutted from the canyon walls, humming faintly as they passed. The deeper they went, the hotter the air became. Soon Damien's HUD registered ambient temperatures well above human safety limits. "Furnace is an understatement," Raya panted. "It is where the flame sleeps," Kalari said. "Where the old ones buried the last fragment of their resonance." At the base of the canyon was a chamber, half-carved, half-grown walls of melted obsidian braided with veins of orange and gold. In the center stood a massive circular well, covered by a lattice of ancient bone and metal. As they stepped closer, Damien felt it again, that pull, a deep gravitational tug in his chest that had no source, no logic. He touched the outer rim of the well, and the lattice opened, not mechanically, but organically, unfolding like a flower blooming in reverse. "What is that?" Rhea whispered. Inside the well, suspended above a shallow pool of molten crystal, hovered a sphere similar in design to the data shards, but larger, pulsing with light. It emitted a deep sound like a heartbeat played on a cathedral bell. Kalari knelt before it. "This is the seed core." Damien approached. "And it's alive, its memory," she said. "The last unbroken flame of Sakura. Only those aligned with the old seed can awaken it." Rhea stepped back. "Wait. You brought us here to test him again, didn't you?" Kalari didn't deny it. Damien looked between them, then stepped forward without hesitation. The moment his hand brushed the light, the chamber erupted in fire. Not literal fire, resonant fire. Light and vibration and memory surged outward in a spiral, engulfing them all. And suddenly Damien saw cities of gold and glass suspended in sky. Beings of flame and thought rising in chorus. Then war. The Pyrocreed twisted by ambition, consuming resonance until their minds shattered. He saw Kalari, young proud, standing atop a tower with wings of crystal singing to the stars. And he saw himself impossible, out of place, watching it all like a memory he had no right to witness. Then it was over. He collapsed, gasping. Kalari caught him. Raya stood frozen. What the hell was that? The vault's truth, Kailari said, and confirmation. Damien looked up at her. Confirmation of what? That you are the link. They returned to camp late, the air humming with unseen energy. Damien sat alone trying to process what he'd felt. Not just visions, but sensations. Emotions that weren't his. Songs sung in languages he didn't know but still understood. He wasn't just immune to Kailari's venom. He was in resonance with Sakura itself. Raya didn't take it well. We need to leave, she said bluntly. This isn't reconnaissance anymore. This is mythology with weapons. We leave, Damien replied, and those Pyrocrete drop crafts will spread corruption through this entire region. We leave and we lose every chance to understand what this planet really is. What if that's what it wants, she snapped. What if it's using you? Kailari watched the exchange in silence, then finally spoke. Sakura does not use. It responds. To greed, to curiosity, to courage. Raya scoffed. How convenient. Believe what you will, Kailari said. But if we don't defend the furnace, well, the Pyrocrete will seize it, and they will not stop. Damien stood slowly. Then we hold the ridge. They fortified their position above the furnace well, set up motion sensors, automated turrets from Raya's emergency kits, and carved fallback trenches into the rock. Kailari marked resonance lines in the stone using molten chalk. The air grew hotter by the hour. That night, as they stood watch beneath a starless sky, Kailari joined Damien by the outer trench. You touched the seed, she said. I did. And now, you hear it, don't you? He nodded slowly. It's faint. Like a song I used to know but forgot. She tilted her head. Then it has begun. What has? Her eyes glowed softly. You becoming. As distant thunder rolled across the plains, too regular, too deliberate to be natural, Raya called from the cliff edge. Contacts, 4 signatures, moving fast. 20 minutes. Kailari's hand fell to her blade. Damien tightened his grip on his rifle. The war hadn't ended. It had just gone quiet for a few centuries. Now the fire was waking, and they were its only shield. The first Pyrocrete came at dusk, a blur of motion against the copper skyline, more creature than soldier. It moved on all fours, black carapace glistening with heat eyes like molten coins. When it reached the outer perimeter, it didn't hesitate. It leapt through a pulse barrier, took 3 turret hits to the torso, and kept moving until Kailari's blade severed its spine midair. The body crumpled at her feet, twitching once, then lay still. One of many, she murmured, wiping blood from her cheek. Noted, Raya replied, already resetting the perimeter. Captain, I count 2 more squads incoming, maybe 12 bodies total, flanking from north and west. Damien was already moving. Pull back to fallback position Alpha. Set remote detonation on the first trench line. We'll lure them in. Kailari nodded once, then disappeared into the shadows like smoke. The defense began in silence. They came not as soldiers but as beasts. Damien watched through thermal scope as the Pyrocrete broke formation halfway up the slope. 2 of them paused to feast on the body of a fallen sentry drone, claws slicing metal like paper. He keyed his comm. Raya light the trench. The explosives detonated with a sharp, controlled pulse. The rock wall collapsed inward, crushing 1 attacker and sending 2 others sprawling into the molten field Kailari had marked earlier. The instant their bodies hit the ground, the resonance lines ignited. An eruption of orange flame tore upward, liquefying armor and bone alike. 1 creature tried to crawl free, only for Kailari to drop from the shadows and drive her blade through its skull. 3 down, she said flatly. Still coming, Raya replied. Then the main wave hit. They struck like thunder, half climbing, half leaping up the ravine walls, using sheer force to batter the automated defenses aside. Raya dropped 2 with precise pulse rifle bursts to the neck, but the 3rd tackled her, forcing her back into a jagged rock wall. Damien moved on instinct. He reached her just as the creature raised its claw. His blade came up, catching the blow, locking the limb in place. The creature roared, hot breath burning against his face, then screamed as Raya planted her boot in its midsection and fired a full charge round through its jaw. Thanks, she panted. Still owe me one. Kailari landed beside them, breathing hard. Reinforcements. 3 more above the ridge. Damien turned, breath catching. At the top of the slope stood a larger Pyrocrete, taller than the others, armored in silver-chased bone. Unlike the others, it carried a staff crackling with ember tech energy. Its voice echoed down the canyon like thunder shaped into words. You are the false echo. Damien stepped forward. And you must be the one in charge. The creature tilted its head. We remember what you tried to erase. Now we reclaim it. Kailari moved beside him. That is the Pyre Warden, a leader. Raya's eyes narrowed. Good. Easier to decapitate command structure. The Pyre Warden pointed his staff at Damien. You carry what does not belong. Flame-born blood in Terran skin. Unnatural. You will burn. Try me, Damien said. The second wave came faster. They didn't just attack, they used tactics. One squad moved to draw fire, while the others struck from behind, leaping across gaps in the terrain, navigating the energy fields as if they saw the resonance lines. Damien fought like a man possessed. He ducked beneath a claw, rolled into a backward slash, then turned to take a bolt to the arm as he covered Raya's retreat. His blade pulsed with heat, now matching his body's rising core temperature. Kailari moved like a burning wind, elegant, fast, deadly. Her strikes never missed. Her footwork echoed ancient patterns, ritual woven into warfare. Each time she cut down an enemy, the flame answered and the air shimmered. Then Raya fell. One of the attackers had flanked too fast. She took a blow to the side and crumpled near the central ridge. Damien was there in seconds, driving his blade through the creature's back, then catching her before she rolled into the ravine. I'm fine, she gasped. Just rib. Maybe two. Don't move, he said, setting her down. Kailari covered them, eyes burning with fury. We hold here, she said. The Pyre Warden is coming, and come he did. He descended the ridge like a walking storm, his staff carving arcs of burning energy through the air. Kailari intercepted him, first blades sparking against the staff as she drove him back with a flurry of strikes. Damien circled around behind. The Pyre Warden was faster than anything he'd fought. He struck with both hands, tail and flame, all augmented by ember mutations. But Damien wasn't just a soldier anymore. The ember seed inside him had woken. Every strike the Pyre Warden threw, Damien anticipated. Every feint he met. His blade felt lighter, his breath steady even in the heat. When the Pyre Warden roared and lunged, Damien didn't dodge. He moved through the blow, slicing deep into the thing's torso. Kailari landed the final strike, a spin kick that knocked the Pyre Warden into a wall of resonance-charged stone. With a final shriek, the creature burst into ash. Silence followed. The Pyrrhocrete bodies smoked on the ridgeline. The automated defenses hissed and died. Raya lay resting, her breath shallow but stable. Kailari walked to Damien's side. Her armor was scorched. Her braid hung loose, but her eyes shone with a fierce pride. You changed, she said. So did you. She touched the side of his face gently. You fought like one of us. I felt like something else, he admitted. Then he looked out at the horizon where black shapes still moved in the distant sky. We won a battle, he said, but the war just found us. The air over the ridge was thick with the scent of scorched metal, ionized blood, and resonance ash. The ground steamed where Pyrrhocrete corpses had fallen. Damien sat with Raya at the edge of the makeshift triage zone, binding a gash in her side with quickseal foam. I'm fine, she muttered. Don't treat me like I'm fragile. You're not, Damien replied. But broken ribs don't argue with terrain. Raya winced as the seal hissed into place. Fair enough. Kailari stood nearby, watching the horizon. Her gaze didn't drift locked toward the west, where faint plumes of heat shimmered against the rock fields. Something out there stirred, and it wasn't done with them yet. You were right, Damien said to her. Kailari didn't look back. About what, the Pyre Warden? He didn't just attack us. He sensed something. In me, in you. We're not just threats. We're reminders. She nodded slowly. They were Emberborn once, before the corruption. They remember our fall and fear it repeating. Later that day, they buried what they could. The Pyrrhocrete were burned, their bodies dissolving into oily smoke that the wind swept away. Kailari recited a prayer in her native tongue, something Damien didn't understand, but still felt in his bones. Raya worked silently. Her injury slowed her, but not her resolve. What's next, she asked. We go deeper, Damien said. To the memory spine. Kailari nodded. It is time. The memory spine rose from the center of the Psychora basin, like the shattered rib of a god, miles wide, curved like a broken crescent. Carved from ancient crystal-veined stone, its walls were etched with spiraling glyphs that responded to touch and thought. They entered through a breach where time and heat had cracked the structure. Inside, the air was cooler, but humming, resonant. "This is where the echo lives," Kalari said. "The last true record of Psychora's will." Raya raised an eyebrow. "The planet has a will now." Kalari turned to her. "Not like yours. Not political, not hierarchical, but a will to survive, to remember." They reached the inner sanctum, a chamber shaped like a sphere, floating platforms orbiting its center. In the middle hovered a massive crystalline heart, fractured and glowing with soft blue light. "It's a data archive," Damien whispered. Kalari touched one of the floating shards. The glow intensified, then spilled outward in waves. Suddenly, the room came alive. Images spiraled across the space-massive Emberkin cities, glowing with energy networks of neural symphonies that controlled the planet's pulse. Then the arrival of alien ships, experiments, a virus. Not biological, philosophical. Damien's breath caught. "They didn't lose to war," he muttered. "They lost to doubt." Kylari's voice was quiet. "They stopped believing in harmony. They fractured. And that break let in the flame hunger." The next image was clear, a Terran vessel, crashing, bringing with it a shard of corrupted AI, a failed gene compliance protocol. "Project Temperance," Damien said. Rhea stared. "We did this. You tried to overwrite what couldn't be tamed," Kalari replied. "And the code infected the Emberkin." He stepped forward. "That means my enhancements, they're based on that code." Kalari looked at him. "No," she said. "You're the correction." They sat in silence for a while, letting the chamber settle. The archive dimmed, but did not deactivate it, pulsed slowly like it recognized Damien's presence. "So what now?" Raya asked. "We found the truth." "Who's going to believe it?" Damien stood slowly. "We make them listen." Kalari turned to him. "There is a way, but it will cost you." He met her eyes. "Go on. There's a node beneath the spine-old flame architecture. It can send a planetary signal, but it requires resonance alignment. Complete." Raya squinted, meaning Kylari took a breath. "He must bind fully, mind and memory, body and flame. If he enters, Psychora will read him." Damien swallowed hard. "And if it doesn't like what it sees, then you burn," she said. They descended together. The path led through a crack in the memory stone down into a pulsing tunnel. The walls shimmered with biological fiber like they were inside a living organ. At the end stood the node, an obsidian throne surrounded by concentric rings. Damien stepped toward it. "You don't have to do this," Rhea said. Her voice shook, not from fear, but from something deeper. He looked back at her. "Yes, I do." Kalari met him at the edge. "If you survive," she said, "the planet will recognize you. The Paracrete will no longer sense you as prey or enemy. And if I don't," Kalari touched his chest, "then I will carry your memory in my flame." He smiled. "Guess that's as close to poetry as you get." Then he stepped inside. It wasn't pain, it was immersion. Damien felt himself stripped bare, not just of armor, but of ego-illusion fear. Psychora flooded into him memories, not his own sensations, from 1,000 years of slumber. He saw the ember fall from every angle, glory, horror, despair. He saw Kalari's birth, her first resonance bond, her defiance when the Paracrete rose. And he saw himself, or rather what he had been made to be, a bridge, the final shard in a long-forgotten design. Then the voice came not in sound, but in presence. "You are unaligned, but you are willing. This is enough." Damien exhaled, and the signal launched. From the tip of the spine, a pillar of amber light erupted into the sky. The clouds shattered. The ground pulsed. For the first time in centuries, Psychora sang aloud. Kalari and Raya stood outside watching the sky burn with light. When Damien stepped out, he looked changed. His eyes shimmered faintly. His skin carried faint resonance lines that pulsed in rhythm with the world. Kalari stepped forward and placed her palm over his heart. "You are flame-bound." He smiled, and now Kalari looked to the stars. Now they come. It began with silence. Then came the pulses, subspace echoes from across the void. Damien stood at the summit of the memory spine, his boots balanced at the threshold between past and future, while Kailari watched the sky tremble. Raya checked her scanner twice before accepting what it was telling her. Multiple slip signatures, she said. Not just pirate creed. These are human ships. EDF. Damien nodded, his voice quiet. They heard the signal. Kailari didn't look surprised. And others will come. Some to listen, some to silence. The flame had awakened, and now the galaxy had opened its eyes. By midday, the first vessel entered low orbit. It was sleek, wedge-shaped, unmistakably Terran, a Vanguard-class diplomatic frigate, its profile bristling with comms arrays and retractable weapons pods. Raya watched through her magnifier. Transponder says UEDF Solace. No weapons active. But that doesn't mean they won't be. Damien exhaled. Let's give them a reason not to fire. The shuttle descended an hour later. Damien, flanked by Kailari, and a limping but defiant Raya, waited at the landing plateau, a smooth ring of old Emberkin architecture now repurposed as their welcome mat. As the ramp lowered, the air hissed with sterilized pressure. From the shadows emerged Commander Ilaris Dane, tall, broad-shouldered, his face weathered by experience and politics. Captain Varel, he said curtly. Commander Damien replied. Ilaris's eyes narrowed as he looked to Kailari. I assume this is the native. She has a name, Damien said. Kailari. Emberborn. Guardian of the Vault. Kailari inclined her head, golden eyes gleaming. And you are a guest. Treat this ground with respect. Ilaris's jaw twitched. We picked up your transmission. Whatever tech you tapped into, it spiked subspace comms from here to the Kuiper Rim. Good, Damien replied. That means they'll all hear it. Ilaris frowned. And what exactly are they hearing, Captain? That Socorro lives, that it remembers, and that the war we think we fought here was nothing compared to what's coming. Inside the memory spine, the diplomatic team set up a temporary post. Holographic displays projected resonance patterns and active data from the seed core. One EDF scientist fainted after brief contact with the vault interface. They're not ready, Kailari murmured. They'll have to be, Damien said. Raya remained on high alert, watching every soldier and scientist who stepped too close to the ember veins without understanding the danger. Kailari remained near Damien. Her movements were still fluid and graceful, but now there was tension beneath her skin, a kind of resonance feedback from the seed core's activation. You feel it, Damien said one night as they stood on the observation ledge. Kailari nodded. It's waking something older than war, something we tried to bury. He glanced sideways. The flame hunger. No, she said. Worse. The emberless. They came in the third wave. Not ships, but signals. Encrypted, chaotic bursts of language and data. Some in ancient Emberkin glyphs, some in dead Terran dialects. One message played on loop: do not trust the singing stone. Do not let it bind. Raya narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? Kailari answered without hesitation. There were those who feared resonance, who believed the flame was a lie, a trap to overwrite free will. They built countermeasures, echo jammers, memory leeches, thought scramblers. You're saying, Raya said slowly, someone else out there is actively fighting Socorro. Kailari's eyes gleamed. They never stopped. On the fourth day, Pyrocrete ships re-entered atmosphere. This time they did not attack directly. Instead, they deployed spores, orbital fungal canisters that drifted down like ash and embedded into the soil. Raya's sensors screamed. They're infecting the ground, she said, spreading something under the crust. Kailari reached into the soil. When she pulled her hand free, dark tendrils clung to her fingers. They're severing the flame. Damien's jaw clenched. How do we stop it? Kailari's voice was grim, with a counter surge. We need to amplify you. Me, you're the link. The planet listens to you now. Raya frowned. Amplify? How? Kailari hesitated. There's a throne beneath the echo root, an interface designed only for the seed chosen. Damien nodded. Take me there. Raya grabbed his arm. You've done enough. This could kill you. Or stop everything from dying, he said. The echo root was buried in a crater wreathed with molten glass. They descended into it as spores fell like black snow from the sky. Damien walked at the center of the trio, now his skin faintly glowing, his eyes burning with the subtle rhythm of resonance. They reached the throne. It wasn't a chair, it was a living mechanism, a woven network of tendrils, nodes, and flame veins that rose from the floor in serpentine coils. The moment Damien stepped forward, it shuddered awake. "You'll only get one shot," Kalari said. "I only need one." He stepped inside. The throne closed around him like a cocoon. Pain lanced through his nerves, bright, pure, total. His heart stuttered, his vision burned. And then he heard it, the flame, not as fire, not as memory, but as will. He reached for it, and it reached back. The counter surge detonated like a nova. Across the basin, every resonance line lit up in perfect sequence, veins of molten light drawing runes in the sky. The spores shrieked as they vaporized midair. Pyrocrete ships lost all command input, spinning out of control as their AI cores fried. On board, the Solace commander Alaris watched in awe as Sikora spoke not in words but in vibration. A phrase emerged from the seed core. "This world remembers, and now so must you." When Damien opened his eyes, Kalari was cradling him. Her face glowed with pride and grief. "You did it," she said. He tried to speak, couldn't, just nodded. Raya looked down from the ridge, her voice cracking. More ships inbound. Lots of them, not all friendly. Kalari rose, still holding Damien's hand. "Then we finish this." The sky burned silver. Hundreds of vessels hung above Sikora, human pyrocrete unknown. Some broadcast warnings. Others demanded surrender. And some, silent and black, simply watched. Damien stood at the summit of the memory spine, his boots sunk into stone, older than any Terran chart. His armor was scorched, his body humming with a resonance that would never leave. The throne's fire still pulsed in his bones. Kalari stood beside him. She too was changed. Her eyes no longer glowed, they shimmered, like still water hiding endless depth. The flame had accepted them both. Rhea crouched behind a perimeter barricade nearby, running tactical overlays on the orbital patterns. "EDF fleet says they're here to establish peace," she said dryly. "They've got 8 warships aimed at the surface. That's what peace looks like now." And the pyrocrete Damien asked, silent. "But their spores are mutating, adapting to the surge we hit them with. We bought time, not victory." Kalari's voice was calm. "Then we used that time wisely. Inside the vault, the seed core pulsed in slow, deep rhythm, no longer just memory, but awareness. Across the planet, flame lines hummed, awakened from dormancy. Every action Damien had taken, every choice had been written into Sikora's memory. Now came the final offering. "We can send a message," Kalari explained, hands pressed to the ancient interface. "Not just to orbit, to the galaxy." The flame's final memory offered freely without encryption or bias. "A signal of truth," Damien said, "of who we are, what we did, and what we became."